Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to have a talk with you this evening about the myths of the circle of fifths. There's been a lot of explanations of the circle of fifths. I'm sure there are many of them on YouTube. It's been represented in countless theory books and mentioned by hundreds and hundreds of guitarists. It's not as complicated as I think people believe it may be. The whole thing about the circle of fifths is it's very simple logic, but in order to understand that simple logic, one needs to perhaps learn a little bit more about the logic of the guitar itself. Now, a lot of people talk about on YouTube about unlocking the neck, various methods offered for doing this, but I want to talk to you briefly today about the logic of the guitar fretboard. Now, I'm sure many of you have seen a keyboard. The keyboard is clearly shown in black and white. The white keys are the natural notes and the black keys are the sharps and flats. I think most people know that as a very rudimentary knowledge of music or musical instruments. That logic is exactly the same on the guitar, except it's not as obvious. The keyboard literally is in black and white. The black notes are the sharps and flats. The sharps and flats and the natural notes on the guitar look exactly the same, but they do play the same notes and the logic is explained the same way. So first of all, I want to just have a quick chat about scales. We're all familiar with this scale, the major scale. Okay, do, re, mi scale. Here's another one. And another. They're all major scales. Now the reason they sound like major scales is to do with the gaps between the notes. I mean, nobody, I assume that a lot of people watching this video at the moment won't know what notes I'm playing, but perhaps you do recognise that it's a major scale that's been played, as opposed to, say, a harmonic minor scale. Now that doesn't sound like a major scale. You don't know what notes I'm playing, so what you're recognising is the gaps between the notes. Okay, now this major scale again, like I played before, a C major scale. I'm going to play that now on one string for you. It's exactly the same scale, all played up the second string, starting on this note. That's the same scale. Let's look at the gaps between those notes. I started off here, and I went up 2 frets. Then I went up another 2 frets. Then 1 fret, 2 frets, 2 frets, 2 frets, and 1 fret. That's, well, if I've discussed those gaps, if you like, as tones and semitones, obviously if you're talking to a pianist or a flautist, they might not actually know what a fret was. Okay, so 2 frets is 1 tone, semitone is 1 fret. It's easy enough. So from that first note I went up a tone, and then another tone, a semitone, a tone, a tone, a tone, and a semitone. In other words, 2 tones of semitone, 3 tones of semitone. That's pretty straightforward to understand. So wherever I start out on the guitar, some random fret on some string or other, let's say, take this one, if I follow that same sequence of logic, 2 tones of semitone, 3 tones of semitone, I should get another major scale. I will get another major scale. So from there, up a tone, up another tone, a semitone, another tone, another tone, another tone, and a semitone. So that's the sound, or the scale, the tonal sequence that determines a major scale. So every scale's got its different tonal sequence. The one for the major scale is 2 tones of semitone, 3 tones of semitone. Now earlier on when I played that same scale, I played it here. Well, let's look at the notes that I'm playing. Okay, now just going back to the keyboard briefly. On the keyboard, middle C, or the note C, is to the left of the 2 black keys. F is to the left of the 3 black keys. Okay, so on the keyboard, every time you get an E, F is the next key along. Every time you get a B, C is the next key along. Okay, now for everything else you have to jump a black note. In other words, there's a black note in between them. So There's a black note between C and D. There is also one between D and E. There isn't between E and F. There is between F and G and G and A and B, and then B to C there is again no black note. So the two semitones there are E to F, B to C. There are no black notes between those notes, those pairs of notes, okay? And it's exactly the same on the fretboard. So if I start on the note C and I go up 2 frets, I'll end up on a D. If I go up another 2 frets, that's an E. One more fret is an F. Another 2 frets takes me to G. Another 2 frets, a tone, takes me to A. Another 2 frets takes me to B, and one more takes me to C. So the scale of C major has all natural notes. They're all white notes. Okay, now I said before that all major scales follow the same sequence, same tonal sequence, to call it properly. 2 tones a semitone, 3 tones a semitone. So if I start on another note and follow that same sequence, I'm going to get another major scale. Now let's see what happens if we start on the note G. There's the note G, open 3rd string. So up a tone takes me to an A. Up another tone takes me to a B. Now it's a semitone. That takes me to C. Up another tone takes me to D. Up another tone takes me to E. Now I've got to go up another 2 frets above E, not 1 fret. E to F is a semitone, but in order to preserve the tonal sequence, I have to go up 1 tone from E, taking me to an F sharp, and another semitone above that will give me the last note G. So in the scale of G major, 1 note needs to be raised, the F sharp, the 7th note of the scale. I should have said the F needs to be raised to an F sharp, the 7th note of the scale. So that F sharp needs to be raised in order to preserve the tonal sequence that makes a major scale. If I don't include the F sharp, it's another scale, it's a Mixolydian scale, it's not a major scale. Let's do the same thing on the note D and see what happens. Well, if I start on a D, there it is, let's go up a tone, which I need to do. Another tone gives me an F sharp. Another semitone now takes me to a G, another tone takes me to an A, another tone next takes me to a B, another tone takes me to a C sharp, and then the semitone now takes me to D. So let's just think about what happened there. I've got that 7th note which has brought in a new sharp, that's C sharp. But if you remember, the 3rd note was an F sharp, which we had in the first sharp key. So I'm not picking these scales in a random sequence. This is what the circle of fifths is. So if we start with the note C, there are a scale of C, there are no sharps or flats. If we go up a 5th above C, so C, D, E, F, G, starting on the note G, we introduce an F sharp in its scale. A 5th above G is the note D, G, A, B, C, D. So the scale of D, as I've just demonstrated, has 2 sharps, a new sharp, the C sharp, and the old sharp, excuse me, the F sharp. A 5th above D is A, D, E, F, G, A. Okay, just incidentally, can I just point out as well that when we talk about these notes, we've got, say for instance, C, D, E, F, G. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So from there to there is a 5th. From there to there is a 3rd. From there to there is a 3rd. Okay? So we're just talking about fifths at the moment. Okay? So a 3rd above D, as I said before, D, E, F, G, A is the note A. So if I start on the note A, I'll use the open 5th string, we should now end up with 3 sharps. The 2 that we had in D, that was the F sharp and the C sharp, and a new sharp now we should find at the 7th degree of the scale, the 7th note of the scale. So let's think about that. So A, up a tone, is B, and up another tone, C sharp, semitone, D, another tone, E, another tone, F sharp, another tone takes us to that 7th note of the scale where we've now found a new sharp, the G sharp. And obviously our semitone takes us back to A. So we've now got 3 sharps of the scale of A. So C's got none, G's got 1 F sharp, D's got that F sharp and a new sharp, C sharp on the 7th degree of the scale. A 5th above that takes us to A, and that's got 3 sharps, F sharp, C sharp and its new note G sharp. a fifth above A, B, C, D, E. E. So we can now expect E to have 4 sharps, which it does do. So let's start on the note E. I'm going to use the open first string. So E, F sharp, there's an old sharp, G sharp, that's the other tone, another tone, A, a semitone, another tone, B, another tone, C sharp, and here's my new sharp, the D sharp, and a semitone takes me to A. So just reiterating, all these scales, they're all governed by the same tonal sequence. 2 tones of semitone, 3 tones of semitone. I'm not going to take that any further just at the moment, because if you're new to this, there's probably a lot to think about there. You're going to need to go over it. Try and follow the logic yourself on your own guitar, but just quickly to go over the basic facts. E and F, B and C, there are no black notes between them. That's quite easy to remember. Every farmer buys cows. E, F, B, C. Every other pair of alphabetically next door notes has a black note in between it, and it's the same on the guitar, it's the same on the flute, it's the same on the piano, it's the same on the oboe. The notes follow that exact same logic, that E and F, E to F is the very next note up. There's no black note in between it. Same with B to C on the oboe or the flute or whatever you want to talk about. B to C, B and C. C is the very next note above B. All the other notes that are alphabetically next to each other have a black note in between them, a sharp or a flat. Okay, and that logic then we can use to study scales. So a tonal sequence for the major scale, remember, is 2 tones of semitone, 3 tones of semitone. So no matter what note you start on, if you follow that logic, you'll get a major scale. It's as simple as that. So we applied that then to C. C had no sharps or flats. So it's the only scale that doesn't have any sharps or flats. Every other major scale does. Okay, the next scale up in the circle of fifths, C, D, E, F, G, has 1 sharp. The 7th note of the scale's been raised, F sharp. A fifth above G, G, A, B, C, D. This has the old F sharp and a new sharp on its 7th degree, C sharp. So we've now got 2 sharps, F and C. The next note above D in the circle of fifths is A. That's now going to have 3 sharps. The old 2 sharps, F sharp and C sharp, from D, and then a new sharp, the G sharp, on the 7th degree of the scale. And we then went through to the scale of E, which is a fifth above A, B, C, D, E, 5 letters apart, and E has the old 3 sharps, F sharp, C sharp and G sharp, plus the new sharp on the 7th degree of the scale, the D sharp. So E major has 4 sharps in it. I hope that's made some sense. Please go over the video again. This is in fact my first attempt at doing a teaching video. I'll definitely be doing some more in the future, so thanks very much for listening, and I hope you've got something out of this. Bye bye.